Friends, and welcome back to my workshop. Today I have something very interesting planned. I was wondering, can you build something useful out of tree bark and resin? Well, let's find out today. Follow me and lessons anfangen.
There's dirt on my hands, strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
I not only have the tree bark, I also have those pieces. Those are from the stump that I cut in Florida, and I brought them here to Las Vegas to build something out of. And I think I'm going to use those as well. And here's a close-up of the pieces. I want to start with the smaller pieces first before I dive into the big pieces, since I have never worked with this kind of lumber before. And that brings us to the answer of the question of my last short video. Some of you guessed it right. The lumber is from an elephant ear tree, also called monkey ear or guanacaste tree, if I pronounce this right. It is the national tree of Costa Rica. The wood is natural, water resistant and lightweight, so it's not just used for furniture building, but it's also used for shipbuilding. I'm just really excited to have such an exotic wood on my property that I get to build with. So let's see what I can make out of it. I started the whole project by building a form so I can pour the resin. Within the larger form, I built different compartments, so I can do multiple pours of different wood with different colors. I attached the pieces on the sides with screws. I made sure to pre-drill all the holes. For the inside pieces, I used tape to keep the pieces in place and the resin from leaking out. I used tape since I want to reuse the form for different shades in the future, so I don't want to deal with having to cover up holes from the drilling each time. Here's a close-up of the tree bark I will be using for this project. The bark has a really cool pattern inside. After I decided on the layout of the pieces, I stuck the tape to the dividers and taped them onto the board. On top of all the designs I'm already planning, I just came up with another one. I wanted to reuse some of the scrap pieces I have laying around to make a few more bottle openers with those. I want to engrave something on top and then fill those engravings with resin. For this, I'm using lots of glue and clamps to keep the pieces in place. And now it's time to have a little fun again with sanding. I need to clean up all those pieces that I will be using for this project. Most of them just really need a light sand. And now, since all the pieces are cleaned up, it's time to pour some resin. For the resin pour, make sure you wear gloves. Also work in a well-ventilated room or work with a respirator. Of course, I'm using Total Boat resin. The quality of the resin is very important to get a good product in the end. Total Boat resin has never disappointed me. For the pour, I'm using tabletop epoxy. The mixing ratio is 1:1. Make sure you measure it correctly. And now it's time for the resin dance. Alright, I think that should be enough mixing. For this pour, I'm adding a brown pigment. For the pour with the bark, I added a shallow layer of clear resin on the bottom, where I stick the bark in and let it dry to keep it in place for the rest of the pour. I don't want the pieces to start swimming. I will be using lots of different colors for the rest of the pour. For now, I stuck the pieces one by one into the resin layer. Once all the pieces found their place, it's time to let the resin dry for a bit, before I add the next coats that will include color. And here we get the color all added. As you can tell, it's very colorful. It's different colors right next to each other, flowing into each other. We got yellow, purple, pink, blue, red, all the colors. While this was drying, I went back to the workshop to clean up any excess glue. And yes, since this video, I finally got the lighting issue fixed. Once the boards were cleaned up, I started to design the bottle openers. This is the design I came up with. Simple to cut and just the right size. The openers are approximately 3¼ inch long and just over 2 inches wide on the widest point, making them the perfect size to give a good fit for any hand while using the opener. It's a few days later now and the resin has fully cured. Now it's time to get the pieces out of the form. Since I'm building my own forms and not using silicone mold, it needs a little bit muscle to break them loose. But nothing I can handle. I used a chisel and flathead screwdriver to help me out. This is the piece with the monkey pot wood. And here I'm removing the piece with the bark. You can see all the great colors. I think it's gonna look amazing. This is a front view. And now it's time to go back into the workshop to use the CNC to cut out the shapes. While the first set was cutting, I used this time to run the resin boards through the planer to clean them up a bit. And then it was their turn to be cut. The machine just stopped cutting and I can wait to take them out. Come on, let's check them out. Let's take one out to have a closer look. Wow. Wow. Insane, look at this. I wasn't really able to capture the beauty of all of the pieces on camera just yet. So let's chamfer the edges and then sand all the pieces. Here I'm using my router table to chamfer the edges. And then it's time to sand. This is not my usually kind of way to sand. The pieces are too small to just put them down on a table. It's easy to just hold it in my hand and sand them one by one. And of course, I still have to put in a little bit of a hip swing. You can't just let the fun out.
Mini skirt on, dip my body in glitter. Platform sneakers, all the boys want a picture. Two foreign cars, I make rich look richer. Save your breath, baby, I'm not going home with ya. Mini skirt on, dip.
Once the bottle openers are nice and smooth, it's time for the finish. I wanted to go with something that soaks into the wood and hardens it to give it even more stability on the parts where the bark is exposed. So I chose to apply multiple layers of pure tung oil. The first few layers are mixed up with mineral spirits, since this gives the wood the opportunity to soak in more of the tung oil deeper since it's thinner, to end up with a much thicker layer. Now all that's left to do is to attach the hardware so you can actually open bottles with it. I ordered the hardware from Amazon. The link to the items is in the description below. And we are fertig! The bottle openers work like they should, just perfect. Now all that's left to say is Prost! Snag your bottle opener in my Etsy shop. I have a few available. Please leave me a comment on the video. Subscribe if you haven't done so, and hit the like button if you like the video, of course. Also, if you can, please join my Patreon for additional content. This helps me create more videos for YouTube. See you next Friday. Tschüss!